most of the defendants being sentenced to jail are household names in Hong Kong. They were former legislator, they were democracy movement veterans, some of them are lawyers, pilots, legal scholars, etc. The fact that they are in jail because they were involved in a primary election is ridiculous. And some of them has to stay in jail up to 10 years. It is even more outrageous. So it really indicates the freedom of Hong Kong has strength and the political suppression in Hong Kong is melting.
And of course, we've got the likes of, Benny Tai and Joshua Wong, Claudia Mo. Two of them, we've had on this program on a fairly regular basis. How would they sort of view this punishment? Do they see this as a sort of a sacrifice and also remaining defiant in the face of their jail convictions?
It depends on what kind of condition and stages that they are in. Some of them, like Joshua Wong, Gwyneth Ho, they are really tough. They are very persistent and determined to speak out. They haven't really bound down or kowtow in any circumstance for the past few years. But for some of the others, which understandably they had to plead guilty and say something in order to have a lighter sentencing. We're talking about people who've been locked up in jail before verdict for more than 3.5 years. It's already a long and exhausting punishment for them. Some of them, they have their family passed away during the time they spent in jail. They have their newborn babies. They missed out the whole first few years with them. It's a really devastating situation, especially for those who were just merely joining something that every democratic countries would do, which is running a primary to get the strongest candidate to run for legislative office. So this for them, some of them, is actually an unimaginable few years for them.
And do you have concerns for their welfare while they're in prison?
Definitely. I went to jail in Hong Kong in 2017. That was a completely different political circumstance. I was not ill-treated or physically abused, but I've heard cases which these defendants they have been somehow facing much tougher circumstance. For example, arbitrary solitary confinement, or even physical abuse, or a lot of ill treatment. So it's definitely much more difficult to be a political prisoner in Hong Kong nowadays than 7 years ago. And it really shows how deteriorated the Hong Kong political system is.
Yeah, can you explain to us, firstly, the basis of their conviction as per the national security laws of Beijing?
So the national security law was implemented in 2020. The government uses as a weapon to persecute political dissidents and oppositional camp in Hong Kong. The rationale the government adopts is that they wanted to organize a primary election. They wanted to get a majority in the council. They wanted to veto government's bills, including the budget, so that they're committing an actions of subversion. And their crime under the national security law is to conspiracy to subvert state power. And it sounds ridiculous because opposing government's bill or budget, it is something that oppositional party consider to do in every democratic countries. And actually in Hong Kong's minor constitution, the basic law, there are ordinances governing what would happen after the council veto government's bill, to an extent that chief executive, the leader of the city, can actually dissolve the parliament. And that is clearly written in our constitution. So it's already well designed. You cannot say that you are using a well-designed system, but just averting the state power from any point of view is such a ridiculous charge and verdict.
Yeah, Nathan, we're also hearing that there were many people who were queuing outside the court, with some people allegedly paid to do so to stop pro-democracy supporters, others and family members from entering the court. Is that what you've been hearing?
It's been a common practice for a few years that allegedly the pro-Beijing camp would hire people to queue up to 2 days before the hearing started, so to occupy the court, to pack the court, in order for those defendants to feel more isolated. So yes, definitely it is a despicable act.
And of course, there's been condemnation from the international community, including here in Australia. But what can countries like Australia and the UK, where you are, do for what's happening in Hong Kong?
It's fairly difficult for any governments to do things that can overturn the situation of Hong Kong in a short term. But I believe that raising an awareness, continue to raise the profile of these political prisoners. For now, we have these 45 defendants, but we also have Jimmy Lai, one of the most important democracy factorant in Hong Kong, receiving verdicts soon. So these are really important cases, and we have to keep reporting them, keep remembering them. And many of the councillors in Hong Kong have already spoken up. So I think for now, at least, attention is what we need, and we need to let them know that we are there with them and they're not alone.
And given so many of the most influential pro-democracy supporters, activists, effectively now in prison, what hope is there for this movement in Hong Kong?
The hope is from the people. There are still people supporting these political dissidents, even though they know that by merely doing so, they will be targeted by the regime. The hope also comes from those people who are in jail. Gwyneth Ho, one of the 45, she has posted several social media posts restating that her persistence on the democratic movement, and she's not being scared away, even though for her up to 7 years of imprisonment. So there are a lot of signs showing many in the city that they have not given up. They're trying their best to do so, even though mass protest is unlikely to happen in the future few years, but definitely we will still see a lot of people pursuing freedom and democracy in their own way.
Regardless, though, do you think the length of these sentences has really spooked so many democracy supporters from ever speaking out again? Do you think that is going to happen?
I think the length of sentencing was not out of anyone's expectation, because we already knew that the government would do anything to lock these people in jail. So the chilling effect has already begun a few years back, when these people, they were locked in jail without a proper proceeding, without a verdict, and many of the others have also faced similar treatment. So I think this is a case where we also see many of the 45 showing their bravery and determination for the pursuit of freedom and democracy. On the one hand, it's a devastating news, but on the other hand, by respecting them, we also see hopes of democratic movement.
Okay, Nathan Law, we'll have to leave it there, but thanks very much for speaking with us.
Thank you so much.